Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy Jonathan Macri with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast, recording this on Wednesday night, about 9:16 p.m. We are in the middle of a Luka takeover in Dallas as we are recording this. And I am joined by one of my good friends and favorite guests. He has been crunching tape for he's probably been looking at these prospects for years, if not decades. He has the prenatal photos of the guys that the Giants are thinking about drafting. He is the disturbing. He is the pre and post game radio voice of the New York Giants, along with many other things that he does to keep himself busy. John Schmeelk, hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm about 100 players into my draft prep, Macri. So I want to try to get another 50 done before we get to the draft in about 2 weeks. So,
oh my God, that's a lot of prospects,
and it's guys that might never even see the Giants, so it's kind of useless to me. But as you all know, the NBA, I know you do some work on the NBA draft. Like, it really helps you get to know the league and what these players are once they get into it. So there is a bonus buyback to actually doing the work, which is fun.
Yeah, and let's see if I walked. So Andrew and John were already talking football as I came into our like pre-recording studio, and
we mentioned a player that you knew. That was the most exciting part of it.
Who's Dave Garrard? Is it?
No, Kyle Brady.
Oh yeah, I knew him too. And you were
so we mentioned two. You knew is what you're saying.
Yes,
David Garrard and Kyle Brady.
No, and three because I know about the Sanders kid. And what I was gonna, I won't. We're not gonna do draft talk because I'm woefully out of my league here. But the Giants have the third pick or the fourth pick?
Third pick.
Third pick. Okay. Just tell me, are they gonna take a quarterback or not?
I don't think they'll pick one at 3. I do think they'll pick one in either second or third round.
Okay, there you go.
Clearly, you still have to crunch more tape. Schmeelk.
What's wrong with he's crunching tape of the prospects?
It's called crushing tape. You're crushing tape is the phrase.
Oh my goodness! So
I'm fine with that.
Why are you crunching the tape, or are you crushing the tape because you're killing it? You're in the lab. You're crushing it.
Exactly. He's crushing it. Just tell me, is that better or worse than the cameo thing from the other night?
Oh, that's too funny.
Oh, what did you do?
Okay, so
we're off to a flying start.
We have a sponsor, a recurring sponsor known as Bird Dogs, and they give you, as John puts the hat on. They're not this week, so we don't want to plug them too much. But
Conspot.
So there's different patterns you could get: blue, black, whatever, and there's a camo version. And John was saying get their cameo shorts, not realizing he was saying. He meant to say camo, and then Ben.
No, I didn't, because I've been saying cameo to refer to that design for the entirety of my life on this earth.
All season. Oh, really? So this was like a first time ever correcting you on that, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
I think John Schmeelk is so stunned by it that he froze. Stunned funny. By that. Now he's back.
That's great. No, I heard it. That's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. So hopefully the Giants don't put on cameo and hide who they actually want to take in this draft. So,
or maybe they should.
Your job is effective. Or maybe they should put on as much cameo as possible to hide their intentions with the third pick in the draft.
Let's see how many other words or turns of phrase that I could screw up before we're done with this podcast. How you doing, John? What's going on?
I'm good, man. I'm happy to get out of my hole, out of my dark room, and talk some Knicks basketball. Though I wish last night would have went a little bit better than it did at the end. But it was a fun game. At least they didn't lose to one of the really good teams by 20. I guess that's a step in the right direction, right?
I found a little bit of solace when I looked today, and I didn't intend to stumble upon this stat, but I was looking for their turnovers generated by percentage numbers against Boston, and they've as a percentage of Boston's total possessions, they've generated more and more turnovers each game, with the last night being the high. And if you're looking for encouraging signs, their defensive rating against Boston has gone down with each game. Now, granted, it started at about 8,000 on opening night, so it really had nowhere to go but down. But it has gone down with each successive bout with the Celtics. So there's things to hope for.
Yeah, look, there is. And I think this team's good. They're just not as good as the best teams in the league right now. Now, does that not mean in a 7-game series something weird can happen? They can flick a switch or figure something out in one of these series? Sure. But given where they were, Mac, I think getting to where they are now is still a successful season. You get to round 2, and this is kind of our big picture part. Don't get wiped out. If you told me that the Knicks will get to round 2 and get to a game 6 at the Garden, it's hard to say I would sign up for that, but I wouldn't be disappointed by that.
Me and Jeremy have touched on this a few times, and we don't have to spend too long on it because ultimately I don't know how much it matters, but it really does depend on what your goals are as a fan in terms of what that question. I've asked myself that same question many times this season. What would I sign for? And then I think of whatever the answer is. I'd sign for a game 7. I'd sign for a close game 6 loss or whatever, and it's what? But what do I want out of this year? If I'm someone sitting here who wants up to fire the coach, or I think that they would be better off, I guess, firing the coach, then I'm not. Well, no Knick fan is going to root against them. But if you're sitting here and you're well, if I don't think they're good enough to win anyway, well, then maybe I should want them to get wiped in the second round. There's so many different ways you could go with it. To go with your thing, I think if they lost in 6 close games and they were competitive in 5 of them, I don't know how as a fan you're mad at that, as the result, I guess would be the way to say it.
Hey, look, and this isn't last year's Eastern Conference, right? I mean, it's not Boston and nobody else. It's Boston and Cleveland, right? I mean, you got 2 teams that are going to, win 60 games here. And look, what are you going to do? They're really good. Boston's really good. And now we can kind of get into the players here and maybe why the Knicks still haven't caught those teams yet and what they can do in the future to catch them. Because look, this is the point we're at now, right? It's not trying to build a franchise. It's not trying to, get, over another tier. It's about trying to catch 2 specific teams in the East. And that's kind of what the goal is now, which is fun to have a narrow goal. And it really allows you to focus your offseason plan on that.
Yeah, it does. And I'm happy you framed it that way because I kind of wrote about this a little bit for Thursday's newsletter. It was the notion that, Boston, are they going to be in this form for all of eternity? No, they're going to have to make some kind of change at some point. If for no other reason than Jrue Holiday's getting on the older side. I don't know how many years Al Horford has left at a high level, though they didn't seem to miss him last night. But there is we have yet to see a version of the Knicks consistently really ever where you feel and I think this, do I care about the 0-9 record versus the best teams? Yeah, it's annoying. You'd have loved to get a win or 2, but it's not so much the record itself. It's what the record indicates, which is that we have yet to see a version of the team that is okay, that's the blueprint, right? You go out, you execute in that way, you check those boxes, and at least if you go do that, you'll have a fighting chance. Before last night, I don't know that I felt we had ever seen that blueprint again against any of the top teams, Boston or any team that puts immense pressure on you offensively or immense pressure on you defensively. After this Boston game, if you squint, you could kind of see it because they did some things, and I'm sure we'll touch on those throughout the conversation. But that's really what it is. You want to, between now and the start of next season, you want to get to that point where you're able to roll out that blueprint. And that's part of what the season was about, figuring out what is that blueprint. But if anything else before, and then I could introduce our gimmick.
No, I think that's it. But I think, really the gap that exists between the Knicks and those 2 teams, and this will be a great segue into the players. You could talk about the players that are creating that gap, is when you look at the Celtics, John, and you have the basketball, is there a glaring weakness that you can attack?
No.
When you look at the Cavaliers and you have the basketball, is there a glaring weakness that you can attack?
Glaring? I mean, you're going to try to pull the guards into the actions, but it's not loud, right? It's not a loud weakness. Yeah.
Clearly, we know there's no glaring weakness when you're going against the Thunder on defense. They're just too good defensively. Yeah. And frankly, probably I haven't watched Houston enough. You probably have a better answer than I do, but I don't know. I mean, Sengun's not a very good defender. You could probably pull into some actions away from the basket.
They figure stuff out, and their problem is no, there are no answers going against their defense. It's just can they score enough? So they're in like a different category. But yeah, I agree with you.
So now when you put on the other team's hat and go against the Knicks.
Yeah.
And I think this is why when the Knicks play better teams, they come up short. And why I'm legitimately worried about the playoffs, John, because the best teams can quickly identify your weakness and attack it. And I think what we've seen, even in a couple of the blowouts, the Knicks have hung with these teams for a half. Then I feel like these teams get into halftime. They say, hold on a second, guys, what are we doing? We know how to score points against this team. Let's just go and do it. And once that happens, it becomes very difficult to, I think, slow them down because of the structural problem the Knicks have. And this can go into our first gimmick here if you want to introduce it before we hit the first player. And I think you know where I'm going with this. So
I do have a feeling I know where you're going with this. So this is a gimmick we thought of about 78 seconds before hitting record.
A lot of planning went into it.
A lot of planning went into this.
We really strategized this, man.
Thought about this all day. We're going to go player by player. I guess we could call it a draft. John will get first pick. And then we're just going to say the thing that is most interesting to us about that player, whether it is right now, whether it is against a specific team in the playoffs, whether it is what happens to them this summer, anything under the sun. I wonder if should Tibbs be a draftable option?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So how are we drafting this? Are we talking about guys that we're excited about, that are positive, or just anybody that we want to talk about?
The order of your pick is determined completely by just I want to say whatever I want to say about this player. I need to say what I want to say about this player. Do you
want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
You're the guest, so you get first pick.
Karl-Anthony Towns is the elephant in the room. He is the second best player. He's the second most important player on the team, for good and bad. And I will tip my cap to him first because he has struggled to do this in other games this year. The reason the Knicks are beating the Celtics by double-digit points in the first half on Tuesday night was they kept putting those small guys on him, and for the first time all year, he actually punished them. Mm-hmm. He went into the post, and he dominated, and there was no answer. Why they didn't go to that more in the second half, that's a question for the coach that we could talk about. But first, tip of the cap, great job, Karl-Anthony Towns. When the Celtics are going to guard you that way, you have to punish them. He was patient. He took his time. He got high percentage shots. He didn't let those fake double teams bother him that the Celtics are doing now. I do think in a playoff series, those doubles are going to come harder, and he's going to have to adjust to that because I don't think he's great passing at the top of the key. I don't think he's great passing out of post double teams. Now, that's the good stuff. Here's the bad stuff. The biggest problem with Karl-Anthony Towns' defense, and why it's a bigger problem than Jalen Brunson's, is that his defensive deficiencies give up the two most efficient shots in basketball: open three-pointers and shots at the basket. What are the two shots that teams try to prevent other teams from taking? Shots at the basket, Towns, rim protection, and shots behind the three-point arc. What does Karl-Anthony Towns not do on those screens? Come out heavy enough against really good pull-up shooters. And the best teams in the NBA have great pull-up shooters, whether it's Jason Tatum or Steph Curry or Luka Doncic or even Shea to an extent, Donovan Mitchell, who can shoot from a million miles away, Halliburton, Cunningham, Young.
Everybody.
I'm naming all the good teams. They all have a player that off the dribble can pull up
Brunson,
from 25
but he's on our team. Definitely.
Jalen Brunson. They all qualify. And I don't think this is something Karl-Anthony Towns can get better at. We've seen it for too long. It's a agility thing, but also, and I think Benji and DJ talk about this a lot, his mechanics on defense are brutal. He's just never in the right place, and I think anticipating where the action's going so he can get there ahead of time. The hands don't go up enough. There's too much reaching in to commit those silly fouls, and he gives up open threes, and he gives up shots at the basket. The two types of shots in the NBA you do not want to give up. And I know fans, and look, and I've talked to DJ and Benji about this offline, and they're like, well, if you put him on the smaller guy and you have an Anunoby behind them to help, and I'm like, well, then you're just going to screen with the power forward to get Towns in the pick and roll. Like, could that help a little bit? Sure. But John, and this is again why I think they have trouble with good teams, and this is going to happen with every team in the playoffs. They're going to target him every single time down the floor. Whomever he's guarding is going to be brought into the action on pick and roll. And even if the Knicks go to a trap, they'll have to do a lot of rotating to cover the open 3-point shots. I think eventually what's going to happen, they're just going to have to do a pure switch, which frankly, I think Towns actually isn't terrible at. Like, he's okay, though he did have that stupid foul in the 3-pointer last night on Tatum after he guarded it well initially. But in the end, the Knicks are going to lose in the playoffs in the second round because Karl-Anthony Towns is relentlessly attacked as a pick and roll defender, and he's not good enough to defend the play.
Okay. So you made the case, which reminds me of your preseason article for Knicks Film School newsletter, which was still one of my favorite things. Which, by the way,
I'm in favor of the trade. It's still a good trade, but and we can get to what the next move is there too, by the way, after you go.
So a couple things. One, on the switch on Tatum at the end where he fouled him, as it was, I don't think I jumped out of my seat because I'm pretty sure I was standing, but I got really excited when he switched, and I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want to happen. And then I saw the contest. My initial instinct was like, great job not backing off too much. And then I heard the whistle, and I'm like, well, that sucks. And I couldn't even bring myself to be mad at him, because when the alternatives are obviously just playing the drop coverage, which you would think that they give up 200 points for 100 possessions on drop coverage involving Karl-Anthony Towns. It's not actually that. It's not that bad. But
by the way, and you know, I think the reason is for that he gets a lot of his minutes against other teams' backups, and I think for sure Thibodeau doesn't get credit for that. He gets taken out of the game early in the quarter specifically, so he gets those start of the second quarter minutes against the other team's backups. So you cannot attack him as much on defense because the backup guards are in the game. Which, by the way, smart move by the coach to do that.
Yeah, and they've tried obviously to cover up for him in different ways. So I do think that more switching is part of the solution. I do have to go back to something you just mentioned because you brought it up, and I would have brought it up anyway, so I'm not going to blame you. Where it's like, stick him on a small guy. And I thought about this today as I was trying to write about the game, and because they did some different things last night, you know, defensively that were at least a little bit different from the other Boston games. I think they switched with him more. You didn't see as much in terms of like aggression at the level, which is interesting because we had seen that in the previous two games against the Hawks and the Suns. Now, obviously, the Hawks and the Suns are not Boston, so maybe that's the difference. But the one thing they still have not tried is just slotting Towns onto, you know, let's say, well, it's tough because if it's Drew Holiday, then who is Jalen Brunson guarding? You know,
well, I think it's Derek White. I think you put him on Derek White, right? That's who you put him on.
Which you could. I got to tell you, I might do Jaylen Brown. I might try him on Jaylen Brown. At the very least, if Jaylen Brown is compromised in any way, like he certainly was last night, I would try it. Because to me, like if you're getting the Celtics into a situation where they are hunting Jaylen Brown isolations, and I realize I'm saying this about a player who literally less than a year ago won Finals MVP and the Conference Finals MVP awards. He's a very good player.
Yes.
I think of all the different options, I might sign up for that the most.
How long before he gets into foul trouble if he does it?
Well, and that's tough because if you ask, like, he's not going to be that aggressive, like right off the bat on like in terms of playing up. Now, Jaylen Brown, I would at least like to note, is shooting 32% from three this year. It's worth throwing out there. You know, and there are other options. Maybe you could do it with Derek White. Maybe you could do it with Drew Holiday. The reason why I would like to see them at least try that is because the credit to the Celtics, because Luke Cornett and Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford, when he's in there, the thing that those guys all do is they screen really, really well. And like OG Anunoby, and it should go without saying that part of this whole equation is OG Anunoby, and we'll get to him when we get to him. But like, he's the one guy on the Knicks who's capable of fighting over a tough screen, and he did fight over a couple of screens last night. And it's like it helps blow up the play. if it's not the center, if it's not the big setting the screen, and it's Derek White. Now, look, the other Celtics are good screeners for their positions, but if it's OG Anunoby versus any of those guys, I'm more willing to take my chances. I know I'm like doing a lot of dancing just to figure out how we put a small Band-Aid on a gouge, but it's something they haven't tried yet, and I would at least like to see it. And I am wondering, or at least I'm hoping, that maybe this is the thing that they're saving for the playoffs. And that's only talking about what the roster is right now. And then there's a whole another conversation, which I don't know if we should have during the Towns portion, or maybe for the sake of content, we'll save it for when we talk about somebody else, but a potential offseason move to bring in, somebody else to support the roster. That's kind of where I'm at.
And by the way, I agree with you. I do think it's worth trying. And then even if it makes the situation 15 to 20% better, right?
But how much better? Because if you could score against them,
right?
Isn't all you need to get to? It's like just make them a slightly better than league average offense. If you could do that, you could actually win a series. Now I don't know that can they do that, but it's worth a shot. That's the only thing I'm saying. So you would make the trade again?
Yeah, I would.
Okay,
I would. Because and mostly because of the contractual reasons, right? Julius Randle's a free agent after this year. You would have to make a decision on him. You have Karl-Anthony Towns under contract. So I think that gives you a leg up here. And I think knowing what the center position looked like before the year, you had to. Otherwise, this was going to be a lost year. And I don't think we would have gotten enough information about this year to know how to move forward. Yes. You know what I mean? So, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. And the other thing, I know Cat makes a ton of money, and I know part of the reason he's a Knick right now is because he makes a ton of money. But I think that was as much about the Wolves, and obviously the situation they were in at the moment, which has now kind of been, or I know it has been resolved with the ownership thing, but they very clearly wanted to get out of the Karl-Anthony Towns business in large part because of the money. I don't think Karl-Anthony Towns is some kind of albatross or anything close to it. You will always be able to find a team that could very easily talk themselves into, wait, hold on. The guy just made all NBA, whatever he's going to make their team probably this year. And it's 25 and 12 and 4 or 5 assists. And he's at least we know what we're getting. Shit.
Look, he's a great shooter. He's a really good offensive player, JC, and JM. And that's why I think when we get to this at the end of the year, and I know Jeremy Cohen had a little online video about this with the rumors about Kevin Durant and all that stuff. And he was trying to put trades together.
Yeah.
And I know he kind of said, "Oh, you want to add Durant to Karl-Anthony Towns, right?" Why?
I don't.
Why?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, look, that's the trade, right?
I mean, that's the trade. And look, Devin Booker says he does not want to rebuild. Isn't Booker and Towns basically the same age?
They were in the same college class, weren't they?
Right. I think they were.
Kentucky.
Yeah. So I think they'd love to play together. You get a player on that timeline. You get Durant. You'd have to extend him to an extent. You worry about him staying healthy through a whole year. What is he, 38? He's going to be 38 next year, right? Something like that, Durant. So I think you worry about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he is.
He's not young.
No, he's not young. So, and then, dude, imagine you're starting. Okay. Just imagine. That's actually not better than I thought. Just imagine rolling out a starting lineup next year. Brunson, Bridges, Durant, Anunoby, and Mitch. Then you go use your draft assets to go, or your mid-level exception would say, they're going to be over the second apron next year, probably, right? So you're going to be able to do that. To use some type of exception in free agency. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
They should have access to their taxpayer. Should have access to their right. Taxpayer mid-level. May not even be the full one, depending on some other things we don't have to get into right now. But
whether it's a free agent or you use the assets that have become available to the extra swap because of the extra year in the draft and all that stuff, whatever it is, go find another center. You still have, Deuce coming off the bench. You hope your rookies develop a little bit in year number 2. I feel better about trying to win a championship with that team than I do with the current iteration of that roster.
I think I will side with you. I'm not sure. I'm not.
And I can't stand Kevin Durant, by the way. As like a human being, he drives me bananas. I can't stand him, but he's a hell of a basketball player.
Yeah, he is, and I think he is, for as much as like every place he goes to seems to crumble from within. I do think he is actually about the right things, which is going to probably be a controversial statement, but I'll say it anyway. Okay, I have two guys that I like here for my pick. I'm gonna go with my heart here. I'm gonna take Mikal Bridges. I don't know when's the last time we had a postseason here in New York where there, for me at least, was as much focus on one particular player and how they performed. Not insofar as like, is this person going to make shots or not make shots? It's more about because as of right now, the Mikal Bridges trade is not looking great. It leaves a bit to be desired, but I have, maybe against my better judgment, been holding off on like I say, calling time of death, because he hasn't even been through the playoffs yet. It's the first season. I have also been saying for this is really the whole year. It's been an adjustment. I don't envy the position he was put in. I think he was asked to do a lot of different things that maybe he wasn't comfortable with or isn't comfortable with, so on and so forth. So I get it. I get the struggles, and I don't want to belittle any of that. But I think at this point there is a serious question as to how he fits in with, I will say, the culture here. And if the playoffs go poorly and he does not play well, yeah, you can fire the coach. And at some point, one of us will draft the coach and we'll talk about that. But so that means you have confidence that after the season we just saw from Mikal Bridges and presumably a poor playoff, that another coach, pick your coach. I mean, Mike Malone is like a double of Tom Thibodeau, so I don't know why you'd hire him, but whatever. Him, Taylor Jenkins, freaking Dan Hurley, whoever you want to bring in. You think that that person is going to be able to manufacture an environment where Mikal Bridges could look like a fundamentally different player than he looked like this season. It could happen, right? It could happen. Or maybe this just isn't it's just the fit is not right. Maybe, looking at him and the likelihood that is he going to be a fourth option moving forward? How does he feel about that? What does that even look like? Is more staggering the answer, this, that, and the other thing. I do think he has it in him to have a really productive playoffs. If he works more off the ball and really leans into that, and obviously is a willing 3-point shooter and actually hits his catch and shoot threes, and he taps into the best defensive version of himself with some assistance from his teammates, notably the guy you just took with your first pick, I think it could be great. And we could be sitting here and be like, oh, wow, remember when we were worried about Mikal Bridges? Yeah, he's the least of our problems. But that's why he's my pick, because I am utterly fascinated to see what sort of a playoffs we get from him.
I'll be honest, I'm not as down on him as everyone else is. What's your biggest beef with how he's played this year?
I think he's been soft. It's that simple. I think.
And by the way, I think that is a fair, of all the things I've heard, I think that is a fair commentary, because I think his defense has actually been pretty good, but I think
overall,
what's that?
Overall, yeah, I agree.
I think what Jason Tatum did to him, though, John, last night is a great example of where he's been lacking this year, because I think he actually played good defense on the plays.
Yeah,
Tatum made good shots, but would you call his defense on Tatum in those situations physical?
No. Well,
Tatum tried
in overtime, he had a nice physical defensive possession and Tatum missed. And I saw that and I was like, okay, where's that been?
I agree with that. And I think, just look at how many fouls he's committed this year. It's been very few. Like, I've almost rather have him commit more fouls, because it means he's being more physical defensively. Going to the hoop, draw more fouls. Now, that got better once Brunson was out for a month, right? He was up to almost 4 free throws a game. That got better. So I think he's not strong enough with the ball. I think we saw that last night.
Not.
You know, if Drew Holiday gets into his body when he's dribbling, he tends to lose the dribble sometimes a little bit too much. I agree with that. The 3-point shot, look, it's been just hot and cold. It's been very streaky. But look, I think
he hasn't been taking them lately. That's the other issue.
I know. I agree with that. That's fair. I love his cutting. I think he's the best cutter on the team.
I completely agree with you.
These off-ball screens he sets where then he does his little like leak to the basket. And he gets so many layups. He does a great job. I think in the playoffs, having a mid-range game is much more important because teams take away the 3-point shot in the layup. So I think
100%.
he'll be more valuable in the playoffs that way. And look, I think being the fourth option, which is what he is, and I think it does take some adjusting. I do wonder when Knicks fans complain about how they run their offense, like how many guys do they want us on the same team to score 20 points a game? Like it's really hard to have more than 2 guys score more than 20 points per game on an NBA team. It's just really hard. Like look around the league, folks. The Knicks are probably the only team. How many points a game does Bridges and Anunoby average at this point? Are they both over 18 or are they at 17 something?
Going into last night's game, they were neck and neck at around 18, right? I'm looking at it right now. Sorry. OG 18 on the dot. Mikal 17.8. I don't even need to look it up. Among teams where like the guys have actually played a bunch of games, there's not another team in the league that has 4 guys that are averaging at least 17.8 points a game.
That's my point. What do you want them to do? Do you want to take shots away from Brunson? We saw what happened when Brunson was out and other teams turned the screws defensively. They had trouble scoring. They did. And
yes, it's not about taking. Well, you don't want to take the ball out of Brunson's hands, right? Necessarily. Right. Although, I'm trying to think if it was in the Suns game or in the Celtics game, and I apologize. I forget if it was DJ or Benji, but one of them pointed to a possession where Brunson was used exclusively as a spacer, and it got Bridges actually a look at the rim. Look, if he does all the stuff on offense that you just talked about, and he is the better version of what we have seen from him on defense this year, and he actually hits his shots, because that was another issue last night. It's like he had good looks and he missed a few too many of them. Like, which sometimes like you just kind of have to make them. And he is, for as much as he is a player that has been beneficial just by being on the court throughout his career, this season, it unfortunately kind of comes down to him making shots because of some of the other stuff that he isn't doing, which is, again, part of my critique. And I don't necessarily blame him. I think it is a combination of the situation. If you want to throw the coach in there, please be my guest. And him. So I want to see what it looks like in the playoffs. I think it could work. I think it could absolutely work. And I just want to see it. That's all.
Look, I'm with you. And I think Thibodeau does take some blame for this. And one of the things that I've been on all year is that he takes Brunson and Bridges out of the game at the same time. Like, why are you doing that?
I'd love to know why.
You got to have Bridges on the court when Brunson's not on there. Now that OG is playing the way he does, maybe, but I don't see him as the initiator, Anunoby. I like him trying to score off of other actions and passes out, attacks closeouts, and you can get him on some dribble handoffs and stuff like that. But I don't see him as a guy dribbling the ball up and being your point guard. Now, look, Campaign's back. He can do that part of it and set OG up. I get all that. But I still want to have Bridges on the floor when Brunson is not. And I don't understand why Tom Thibodeau doesn't stagger it that way. That to me is frustrating because that's something that I think is very important to have those two guys, one of them on the court at all times. But
it's the thing that we thought we were going to get this year, right? Bridges plus the bench. And actually, it's funny enough, like in the preseason, remember way back in the preseason, like when it started out, it was Bridges plus the bench. And then it just kind of went away from it. And in any case, well, maybe that also has to do with another potential pick. All right, you're up. Who do you got?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And by the way, I think if people complain about Bridges' on the ball defense, just how much better it is when Mitchell Robinson's the guy guarding the pick, the guy setting the pick compared to Towns. And I think that's it. It could not be more obvious how much that impacts the guy. And it's same with OG, by the way, when he's getting screened. Like you need the guy to give you a little bit of help if you're going to play as that player at the point of attack. I want to go OG Anunoby. I mean, I don't think how you can. I mean, the guy has
I was not going to go in that direction, but now I have my other potential first pick. So go ahead.
That's easy. So look, I mean, how good has OG been? I mean, you got to tip your cap. And I think we talked about this, November or December or something like that. And I said, John, I've seen some like Kawhi flashes. And you're like, I don't know. I think he's hit his offensive ceiling. I go, you know what? You're probably right. And then it went away. Nobody went away. And it took 3 months. He had his elbow thing going on again, right? Yeah. But now all of a sudden, but it's not really Kawhi now, because Kawhi's like the mid-range pull-up guy.
Yeah.
He's kind of like baby LeBron without the passing, where he just dips his head and like mows people over. He has his little rip through. He has his little baby Euro step thing going. He varies his pace a little bit, which I think throws some guys off. He does have his little dip, turn, and fade, which kind of creates space for that little mid-range turnaround jumper. And just his finishing around the rim, man, just goes up and dunks it. He's so long. And he's really, and that's why, again, I'd be more comfortable trading Towns in the offseason because of the way OG has kind of emerged offensively, where I think he can pick up some of that offensive slack if you lost a guy like Towns in a trade. But he's just been great. And his defense hasn't suffered as much as Tom Thibodeau apparently gets players injured from playing them too many minutes. He's had the healthiest year of his career. And, you want to credit their new strength and conditioning guy from Phoenix. Yes. That's fine. You can do that
from
too.
Dallas.
Oh, Dallas. I'm sorry. From Dallas. You're right. That's fine too. So look, OG's been great. I mean, I can't say anything bad about the guy. I think, I do wonder if teams start putting their best wing defender on him, which by the way is good. Because that means they're not on Brunson.
Then you have won if you're the Knicks.
Then won.
That's a major win. So
I do worry about him going against the other team's best wing defender, but he's not going to have to. And that's why it works, right? Hit the open three, attack those closeouts. And if they do have to put their best wing defender on him and Brunson's going against the number 2 guy, to your point, that's just like, OG, you win. Thank you very much.
Now that we're talking it out, like, let's just spitball a first round playoff series against the Pistons. So you would think that they're going to put Thompson on Brunson because he's their best wing defender. I would assume that. If it's anyone else other than Thompson, then that's a win for the Knicks. So let's say they put Thompson on Brunson, then their next best wing defender is it Cade or is it I would think it's Cade. Although
I'm looking at the roster, let me see here.
Well, their healthy starting lineup is Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham, Tobias Harris. They've been starting Timmy. And bringing Malik Beasley off the bench all year. I would assume they're going to keep doing that. And then Thompson. And that's their first 5. So you got to hide. And one of Timmy or Beasley is always in the game. So you're always going to have a weak defender somewhere to target. So that's a good thing right off the bat.
I think Harris goes on OG. I think
Harris goes on OG too. So can he try to exploit that matchup? I mean, it's interesting because that gets into like, how has OG been so effective? And I went back and I did a newsletter the other day, going back and rewatching all of his 2-point field goals from the previous 10 games before Boston. And just like, there's a ton of him it's a lot in transition. It's a lot off of cuts. Those are the 2 most prevalent baskets. But the stuff that's been so impressive, it's been from the top of the key.
Yep.
And he gets a step or he comes around the screen, whatever it is. And there's a burst there. The handle is obviously really good. There's like a low gather and then an explosion when he gets close to the rim. Like, all that stuff is there. And I think at this point in Tobias Harris's career, like, I would favor OG Anunoby if that's the matchup. So that's a win. Like, right there. That's a win. But I guess the reason I didn't think to pick OG is I'm not that interested in him because I feel like this is not, there was a shooting regression that was going to come and it maybe started coming last night. He was 0 of 5 from deep. But other than that, last night he was 5 of 8 from 2-point range. He got to the line 6 times, didn't hit his free throws, but that happens. Was big on the boards, massive offensive rebound late in the game. Did have the 4 turnovers, which is the second most he's had in since the All-Star break. So that was a little annoying. But again, Boston's a really good defense. Not that they're going to face a bad defense in the playoffs. So I'm with you. I think OG is really good, and I do think it impacts their decision making in the offseason too.
Yeah, I just want. There's nothing controversial here. I just want to say OG Anunoby's awesome.
That's fine.
And I think and I think that needs to be said. Given this is the best offensive basketball we've ever seen him play, and I know people were like, "Man, that contract's too big."
Yeah.
Don't look too big now, bro.
No, it's appropriately sized.
Yes. Right.
So I'm gonna go with my other guy who I was gonna pick first potentially, and that's Josh Hart. I think Towns is certainly the X factor in a series against Boston for the reasons that we already talked about. I think Mikal Bridges is important generally. With Josh Hart, so he has this game last night against Boston, and he's not a threat from deep. They're not guarding him behind the arc. He didn't make a three, so he didn't make them pay. And yet, you watch him, and I personally, and I know I'm in the minority on this, I didn't feel like they could take him off the court. I thought he was incredibly important to what they were doing with the things that were going well. He filled up the box score in a way that was affecting the game in a lot of other areas. And yet, there's just no two ways about it. When he's out there, it's like it makes your life more difficult. Even if he is figuring out ways around the spacing issue, you have to, it's like you're still trying to maneuver around something. So
if Towns is the X factor on defense, Josh Hart is the X factor on offense, because he's the guy that teams are not going to cover.
And the difference is there's no world where they're not going to play Karl-Anthony Towns 34 minutes. There is no law that I am aware of that says that you have to play Josh Hart the amount of minutes you're playing him. And I understand against Boston, that's maybe a slightly different conversation because Deuce is 6'3", and Boston, if the more things you give them to target, they're going to figure out a way to target them, and it was only one play I mentioned on the post game. I'm mentioning him now. When Drew Holiday ragdolled Deuce in the post, and again, that's Drew Holiday, not Jason Tatum, not Jaylen Brown when Jaylen Brown's going right. And it's not like this is the first time we've seen Deuce's side come up. It can be an issue on defense. It is what it is. Now he makes up for it in other ways, and that's part of this conversation.
Yep.
But I just, it's all, even putting the Deuce part of it aside, I'm just wondering if there's going to come a point in time in this postseason where Tibbs, who, look, I needless to say, Tibbs loves Josh Hart. Is he going to be just have a second thought? Have a second thought as to how many minutes they're playing him. And will he give, true 5-out lineups a real extended run? And that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, and look, we saw when the pressure went on against Indiana last year, and Josh Hart made them pay. All right. And then he made them pay in both those playoff series. When they left him, he eventually made some huge shots.
Yeah.
And in the Philly series especially. Yeah. He made him pay. And there's going to come a point, and I think the Knicks did a good job of using Bridges as the screener late in regulation against Boston, where they got that one little pocket pass to him and he hit the little free throw.
Great job.
I mean, so you keep Hart out of there and you bring Bridges as a screener. For some reason, they had Cornette on Bridges. I don't know why they ran it that way, but Boston did, and the Knicks took advantage of it. But they're eventually going to just double team Jalen Brunson in crunch time and leave Josh Hart open. And Josh Hart's either going to have to hit an open three, or he's going to have to drive hard to the basket and either finish or find the teammate for a good shot. And whether or not he can do that down the stretches of some of these games is going to determine whether or not the Knicks can win or lose. And if they get into too many situations where he fails at doing it, Tom Thibodeau is going to have no choice but to take him out of the game. And it's not like they don't have a good option. Deuce McBride is a good player, but it hurts your rebounding too, right? I think that's why Tom Thibodeau feels like he has to leave him on the court, because as much as we just praise OG Anunoby, he's not a great rebounder. He's fine. He's okay. He's fine.
I wonder if that isn't another part of his game that could get a little bit better. But to your point, Josh Hart is a difference-making rebounder.
Correct. And he also gets the Knicks into transition. And I think that's the other part of it that's super important. And for all of the things that we'll say about Jalen Brunson, that's great. He plays too slow. And I understand it. He can't sprint the ball up the court because he has to do so much once he gets up there, handling the ball, making moves, penetrating, driving, dishing, all that stuff. So he has to play slow. Go back. Chris Paul played slow. All these guys played slow that played the way Brunson plays, right? So I think Thibodeau really thinks Hart's needed as a rebounder, and he's needed as somebody that creates pace and easy shots for the Knicks. And I think he's afraid if Hart comes out of the game, the team's going to slow down. The offense, as much as Hart hurts you in the half-court offense, he is such a boon in your transition offense that I think Thibodeau worries about losing that aspect of the game if he's not in there. So if Thibodeau thinks he can survive those two parts of the game, maybe he'll make that move. But I don't know, man. Tom Thibodeau. I've read the Tom Thibodeau Constitution. Obviously, you haven't, because you said you don't know what his laws are. The Second Amendment does state Josh Hart shall play at least 32 minutes a game.
32, 42.
He actually came down from the mountaintop with two big tablets, Tibbs, and just wearing like a Knicks sweatsuit with like huge bags under his eyes, and that was the second thing that was on the tablets.
That's a summer assignment. Unless he gets fired. The 10 Commandments of Tom Thibodeau. The 10 Thibodeau Commandments. Yeah, I agree. Obviously, the bigger wild card part of Josh Hart is on the offensive end. There's a defensive aspect to my curiosity about him that is there as well, because he's always been kind of prone to this, but especially this year, some gaffes on the defensive end. And
wait, you mean leaving Hauser open for the layup last night wasn't part of the game plan?
No. And like he has the occasional brain fart, and yet he also finds himself in the right place at the right time. Like he had
big steals. He gets his hands on the ball all the time. Yeah.
So like, again, what version of Josh Hart are we getting on both ends of the floor? It's why I was very happy to get him with my fourth pick. Okay. You are up. We could start speeding it along if we want to try to get through everyone in the rotation, or the coach is still on board.
Luckily it's a short rotation, so it shouldn't take that long.
There you go.
I mean, I have nothing interesting to say about Jalen Brunson, so why don't we just attack Tom Thibodeau, the head coach?
Go for it.
And I'm going to put it to you this way. He's not perfect. There are things he needs to do better. There are two things that I want to point out here. I'm curious on your take on them. The first one is this. Knicks are what now? The third or fourth best offense in the league?
They're actually down to fifth, in fairness.
Oh, they're down to fifth. Okay. Well, that's still pretty damn good. And this still, aesthetically, is the best Knicks offense I've ever watched.
Yep.
It's the best offense I've ever watched. The off-ball movement, the cutting, the layups. If they could just get the three-point frequency up a little bit, I mean, there's not much I can complain about the way the Knicks run their offense. There really isn't. It's really good. It's awesome. So for the people that complain about the offense, now, is there too much Brunson ISO at the end of some of these games? Sure, whatever. That's fine. You can complain about that. He's your best player. It's what every team in the NBA does. But I have trouble complaining about the offense. I think where you have some legitimate criticisms on the defensive end, where it's just stop playing Karl-Anthony Towns and drop. Like, I get it. Like, just stop. Like, it doesn't work. But it's the most common pick and roll defense in the league. It requires the least rotation from the other players. It's the easiest thing to play, except for doing straight up switches. And I do think trying to limit the amount of rotations you have to make is key to a good defense. And that's what the best defenses do, right? There's less scrambling, staying with your guy, keeping it simple. So I understand why they want to do that. But I think, to your point earlier, mix it up a little bit, try some different things, and maybe you'll get some better results. But what I come down to is this, and now we can have a different conversation with what happened in Denver. I'm not firing Tom Thibodeau to hire some no-name assistant. Can't do it. You're trying to win a goddamn championship here. And you're bringing in a guy that's never coached a team, that's an assistant. If there's someone that's on the staff that you know, and you feel really good about their relationship with the players, maybe we can debate that. But I have a hard time firing Tom Thibodeau, and maybe I just have David Fizdale syndrome, and I'm afraid of going down that road again. But plucking an assistant coach from another team and expecting him in year one to bring a team to a championship, I think is asking a lot. A lot.
I mean, look, it's unfair because he inherited the greatest or second greatest player of all time, but Ty Lue had not coached before, right? The Cleveland.
Fair point.
Now, Ty Lue has gone on to become, if not the most respected, he's one of the 2 or 3 most respected coaches in the league.
He's great.
Amongst coaches, amongst media, amongst players, like universally, everybody thinks Ty Lue is the freaking best because he is. He's awesome. I'm sure there's another example somewhere that Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse may have won in his first year, I think so. Andrew, double check that. But I'm pretty sure. So it's not.
Was he in Toronto before, or did he arrive from somewhere else?
He was their G League coach. Yeah, Andrew's saying.
Okay,
that.
so at least they had a good feel for him at that.
Yeah,
point.
They did have a good feel for him. I'm actually going to go in a slightly different way because I don't think, and Malone is just like a tough example because I don't know that there are 2 coaches in the league who are more similar than Mike Malone and Tom Thibodeau. So like, yeah, there's a logic to it. If you're like, well, we really believe in the way Tibbs does everything. We just don't want him anymore because he's whatever. He's a pain in the ass. He doesn't get along with whoever. But like, Mike Malone could be a pain in the ass, like, and a more vocal pain in the ass than Tom Thibodeau. Like, go check out some of his press conferences. He doesn't hide his criticism of players. Whereas, like, I mean, we don't have to get into like the foul, not foul situation on Jason Tatum the other night, but like, there's no question that Tom Thibodeau was going to go up there and he was going to say what he said about OG or say what he said about the situation. Like, it wasn't out of a timeout, this and that. Never in a million years would Tom Thibodeau go up there and be like, yeah, he was supposed to foul and he fucked. Like, that's just one example. It's neither here nor there.
And by the way, that's what great coaches do. What Tom Coughlin told me once is
I
that
hear this.
He goes, John, when the players and the team plays well, it's because the players did well.
Yep.
When the team plays poorly, it's because the coach didn't do a good enough job.
Yes.
And that's what you should always say at press conferences if you're the head coach of the team.
He said this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Never blame the players in public. If the team plays poorly, it's your fault. If the team plays well, you heap praise on the players. And that's how the head coach should operate with the media.
And I think it's fair to say that Tom Thibodeau comes from the same, even though they coach in different sports, comes very much from the same, cut from the same cloth. Here's the thing. My biggest argument for Tibbs for years, through the terrible 21-22 season, and certainly when they rebounded the next year, and I would say even last year when they had to make major adjustments to a new roster, and I thought that presented some real challenges, and then overcoming the injuries, and that presented real challenges. My argument was always a combination of like, look at the coaches that have come to this franchise before and with the Hall of Fame resumes and fell flat on their face. There is something, and I don't know that any of us that are outside the organization could ever fully know the breadth of it, but there is something that is just more difficult about coming to the Knicks and trying to coach the Knicks in this city with that organization, which comes with many complications. And he navigates that, and he has navigated it better than anyone since Jeff Van Gundy. And Jeff Van Gundy, by the way, kind of not got out, when the getting out was good, but like he didn't stay too much longer, into the James Dolan era, just for whatever that's worth. So Tibbs navigated all that, and it's a combination of that, and like every time there was a challenge, he overcame the challenge, and he's great at overcoming challenges, right? Throughout his career. If you need a guy to get you over a specific, like there's a problem, how do we fix this problem? He could figure out a way to fix the problem and get you. But they're at this stage now where it is like, okay, it's not about overcoming a problem. It is about, we have all this talent here. Like there is no problem. The problem is like, how do you get the most out of it? And is he the guy to get the most out of the talent? And I do think that is a fair question to ask. It's a fair question for the organization to ask. And that's why I'm going in a different direction. If they say we're going to move on from Tom Thibodeau this summer, I'm not saying you hire a no-name assistant, but if there is someone that you have vetted and that you believe is capable of taking on this job in this city, in this franchise, and that's a lot, it's a lot of ifs there. because you feel like they are going to be just have a different approach, then maybe that's the way you go. I don't know that person is out there, and I don't even know that they need that. We'll see what happens in the playoffs.
And look, you have to feel. Look, to your point, you have to feel good about the guy, right? I'm with you 1,000%. If they do, I'm open to this.
Love him.
I know you have to love him, and look, Leon Rose has more context than anybody. So if he's going to be able to, I trust him as much as anyone to find that guy. To be totally honest with you, I think he'd do a good job of that. And I'm with you. I'm open to this because there is a world here where the Knicks play the Celtics in the second round, and I apologize for jumping on you, but there is a world here where the Knicks play the Celtics in the second round and get run out of the building in 4 games. Like there's a world where that exists. And you just
I'd be shocked. I'll be honest with you. I'd be shocked, but is there a world that exists? Sure. It exists.
And you just see them hit pull-up 3 after pull-up 3, and the Knicks just don't change what they're doing, and it just happens again and again and again. And if that's the case, or maybe they get wiped out in 5 games and they win a dopey game 4 where they're down 3-0 and the Celtics don't show up in game 4 and they win 1 at home, a perfunctory game that doesn't mean anything.
Happened in the finals.
Like, there's a world where that could happen. Then I think there's a realistic situation where he gets fired, and maybe he should. Because this isn't a team that I think is as good as the Celtics, talent-wise even, but they're a team that should be able to compete with the Celtics. And if you get through one of these series and you don't find yourself competing the way you need to, I think I could see that justifying a change. Absolutely. And by the way, I said this to you when they hired Thibodeau. I thought it was a great, and I wanted to hire Kenny Atkinson. I don't know if you remember our conversations. That was always my guy. I wanted Atkinson.
I remember.
But no one's better at raising a team's floor than Tom Thibodeau. That's what he's done. But I think we both said at the time, he might not be the guy to get you over the top. But guess what? The Knicks aren't going to be ready to go over the top for another 4 or 5 seasons. Well, you know what?
We're here.
Now we're there. Now we're there. So maybe they do need somebody new to get over the top, but you better pick the right guy, because to your point, that coach is not going to, be allowed mistakes and baby steps. Like, you got to come in and you got to win right away. So it is going to be a challenge for whoever takes the job.
And to walk into that locker room and command the respect of everybody, because if Tom Thibodeau is having slight issues, and I don't know necessarily that he is, with getting everybody on the same page and steering in the same direction, then good luck to somebody who's never picked up a clipboard as the head coach before. The thing that I will just amend to what you just said about if they get, it's not about winning games necessarily. It's about, do you feel that you have tried everything to give yourself a shot to win the games? And that is, I think, what remains to be seen. Okay. I'm going to make one more pick and then we're going to end it because I think we've gotten through the big ticket items. I could go in a couple different directions here. I mean, we've taken all the starters. What's that?
Pacome Daddy.
Yeah, that's it.
No. Don't pick Campaign. I know you want to pick Campaign. Don't pick Campaign.
I have nothing to say about Campaign. I mean, I like Campaign. Okay, Campaign's really good. I could get cute and take Deuce. I don't know. Again, I don't know what there is to say. But I will take Jalen Brunson. I'll take Jalen Brunson, and for this reason, I've said versions of this before earlier this season. Oh, GMAC's suggesting Mitch. You know what?
That's why I would go Mitch. I think Mitch is interesting.
Screw it. Jalen Brunson's an MVP. Yeah, he could maybe. There's some stuff he needs to do to figure out how to make this all work. We'll talk about Jalen Brunson later. I do want to. I was thinking about Mitch earlier. And the reason is because I think, and this goes back to your first pick, that maybe the solution to the Karl-Anthony Towns situation is not to trade him for Kevin Durant, but it is to bring in a center who you are confident and comfortable that can play. We're not talking Rudy Gobert level of, like, first of all, money and you got to play him 35 minutes a night, but 25, 30 minutes a night. And obviously, a lot of those minutes are with Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't know that the organization feels that they could depend on Mitchell Robinson from a health standpoint. And I'm not sure that they feel like Mitch has what it takes to be a starting center or the de facto starting center on a championship caliber team from a skill level on the offensive end. And frankly, defensively, like the splash plays are always going to be there. Like that block on Tatum last night was freaking awesome. It was maybe the highlight of the night. And you know what wasn't the highlight of the night? The couple of times where he's just hanging out too far off the arc and the ball kicks out to Porzingis and it's a pick, and it's not even a pick and pop. It's just it's a catch and shoot. It's like, what are you doing, big guy? You know, like he plays closer to the level of the screen and drop coverage, but it's still not. He's still clearly not comfortable getting all the way up there on occasion. So it's not like he is the definite answer, you know, defensively, where he could cover up for these other issues here. So, you know, is it a prove it playoffs for Mitch? Maybe to some extent. But it's more like if it's not, I'm picking Mitch because it's more like if it's not Mitchell Robinson next season, then who is it?
No, I think he's going to be hugely important in the playoffs. Like when you need a guy to come in and lock down defensively, and you know, Mitch even joked about this after a game, right? Like you know, what are your goals here, Mitch? He's like to be able to play 8 to 9 minutes consecutively without like dying out there. And I'm like, well, how are you not there yet, dude? Like it's been more than a month. Like I'm an old man. Give me like playing basketball 2 weekends in a row and I'm okay. Like, come on, dude. Like what are we doing here? Like you should not still be this winded. Like, do you do like some kind of problem with like a lung problem we're not like aware of? Like, I don't understand why this is taking so long. I don't think
that's it. I'm going to throw that out there. I don't think it's a lung problem.
No, I don't think it is either. I don't think it is, but he needs to get that figured out. Let me throw one more thing out there.
Sure.
I'm stealing a bonus. Sure. I tweeted you, I texted you about this and we never actually ended up having the conversation. Is James Dolan a good owner now?
I mean, by just paying the bills and staying away?
Yeah.
You know, I'm never gonna sit here and be like, I know what goes on behind the walls of MSG, because I don't. I think he is. Did you happen to read Mike Vorkunov's article on Dolan from a few weeks ago? It was. I did
not.
So it was basically about how he's at war with the league and he's just. Yeah, he's a royal pain in the ass in Adam Silver's ass or side, whatever. And you know, there were some little snippets in there, and Vork is not that I would question any reporter, but like Vork is like, for anybody listening to this, be like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. No, trust me. If Vork has this, it's rock solid. You know, some snippets in there about James Dolan still, like employees like fear going into their whatever it is, Monday or Tuesday meetings with him, whenever they have those, because
now, I will say this though, I think him building that sphere, which is really cool, by the way, is like the best thing that could have happened.
It is a distraction.
He's so locked in on that sphere that he's allowed the space for the Knicks to do well.
But like, look, he obviously has been a good enough owner because the team has been successful and like he deserves credit for that. But I wonder, is it that like Leon Rose and I guess to a lesser extent Tom Thibodeau have figured out the ways to navigate the situation there, and they're just really good at that, and that is part of why they deserve credit for accomplishing what they have accomplished? Or is it that maybe he's a pain in the ass in meetings, but overall James Dolan is just like super helpful and like, you know, he's everything you want an owner to be, other than maybe his quirky personality? I don't know. I can't sit here and answer that question.
I know, neither can I. I was kind of making a joke. I just thought he actually said some things that were logical and made sense in that podcast with Brunson, where I'm like the one thing that I've told people and they like don't believe me. I'm like, when he was asked like, what piece of advice would you give owners? And he's like, you know, you don't know as much about basketball as the people you hired to do the job, so just support them and stay out of their way. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my God, like what? Like, did James Dolan just say this? Like, I could not believe it. And, you know, and I think somebody made a joke. It might have been a genuine question from Josh Hart. He goes, have you always been that way? And then Dolan just started laughing. And he's like, no, I have not always been that way. And it was just like a really funny, like him understanding how bad he was at it at the beginning of what he did. Yeah, I thought was actually, it made me feel okay about it, to be honest with you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe this guy has actually figured it out a little bit. I don't know.
No, I'm definitely okay with it. I'm definitely okay with it. I haven't worried about James Dolan in years. That's the best compliment that I could give him, because at one time he was easily the thing I worried about the most. with the franchise.
And rightfully so, by the way.
Yeah, and rightfully so, right? So, no, from that perspective, I don't think it's a silly question for you or a joking thing. Like, I think it's a real point of conversation. Is he a good owner now? Like, it's the fact that we could actually sit here and ask that question and it's not crazy is, I think, a testament to what he's been able to do.
But I think we're not going to know until something goes wrong, right? Because and I've said this about team sports all the time. When things are going well, it's easy for everyone to look like they know what they're doing. But when things start going haywire, does he step in and like do Dolan-y things from 10 years ago? Because things have been going pretty well the last 3 years. So I think that is still something that I want to see. Like if something goes a little haywire, will he do something weird? I don't know.
I brought up before the possibility that, like, let's say Bridges has a poor play. I obviously don't want this to happen. Let's say Bridges has poor playoffs and they're sitting around and they're being like, shit, like this is just did not work. We have to figure out what we can, we have to move on from this guy. And let's say they are approached with a trade where it's compared to what you gave up. It's like, it's maybe some nickels and dimes on the dollar. And they bring that to Dolan to okay. And he's like, wait, excuse me? What the fuck did you assholes do? Now, maybe he would be justified in saying that, but like, is he going to be like, all right, I trust you you got yourself into this mess. You can get yourself out of this. Or is he just going to be like, I'm going to find someone else to and look again, who's to say that would be necessarily the wrong thing? Although for as much as I could sit here and be like, maybe they look elsewhere at the coaching situation. I do not want Leon Rose and his team, emphasis on and his team, Brock Aller. I do not want them going anywhere.
Yeah, and by the way, and GMAC brings up Ranger fans sure don't think so, by the way. I thought Ranger fans were okay with James Dolan. I don't follow hockey at all. I thought he was generally hands-off with the Rangers. So I thought Ranger fans would kind of be okay with James Dolan, no?
It's more of to your point about just don't do anything and get out of the way, being the lowest possible bar to clear. So the fact that Ranger fans last year were like, oh, he's the greatest owner ever. We won the President's Trophy. And it's very simple as he did nothing. So when the bar is do nothing, then yes, he's a great owner. I think we all have the same worry as you just mentioned of the moment he does something, what will the something be? But we'll see. Hopefully there's not something that he has to do.
Now, I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but Berman had some reporting down in Florida that Macri's management style at Knicks Film School is Dolan-esque. That's what I've heard. Is that true?
So I'm going to let you answer that, John.
I'm trying to think what I don't have a management style. He's the man. My management style is like, here, Andrew, you do it.
Andrew, do this. So would I be the Leon in this situation in that case?
Yeah, I don't ream. Have I ever reamed anybody have we ever had a meeting?
Only if they give you a super chat.
There you go. That's
here's the question. What's the maddest Macri has ever been not on a show?
Like in life?
No, like in relation to the business, to the Knicks Film School business. What's the maddest you've been?
I don't think that moment has happened yet. I've done a very good job of making his life.
Like, has there been like you have this big live stream plan? It just doesn't work technically, or something like that.
That happens all the time as far as like a connection issue, but that's just like operator error. There's never been a a thing had to be canceled or something. Look, I'll be honest. It's a very simple operation. He sits, he puts the mic on, we make him look great, and then by his own talent is brilliant.
That's very
brilliant. I like it.
I remember I had a conversation, and thank God it was JB with Jeffrey Ballone. I think it was before you were producing, or maybe you had just come on and you weren't like actually producing. Like you were on every episode, and
before me.
Yeah, I forgot to hit record, and we had this great conversation about the Knicks, and none of it got recorded, and I was like, oh fuck. So I was very mad at myself that day. I've been like disappointed at times where, let's say, like a guest or something didn't come through, but no, I don't know that I've ever. I don't know.
You seem like a very chill person, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, totally.
Not when, as long as you're not watching the Knicks. I think that's when then that's out the window.
Sure, let's go with that. All right, that was fun. Good question, John, to end us on. Anything else that we forgot? Or you want to cover before we get out of here?
No, I don't think so. Can I tell people where to watch our Giants draft stuff?
That's exactly what I was getting towards. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. If you guys are football fans, you're Giant fans, Giants.com. We do a lot of really good stuff on the draft. And I know people are thinking, oh, it's the Giants. You don't say anything negative about the team. Well, that's not true. We take an hour of phone calls, an hour a day, 5 days a week. So if you don't think that we say things that are honest, listen to the show. I think you'll see it. But I really think our draft coverage is second to none. It's excellent. Giants Huddle Podcast is our Big Blue Kill 5 is our live show. It's every day at 12:30. Giants Huddle Podcast is what I really do a lot of during the draft. I've had some great draft analysts on: Charles Davis, Matt Miller. We have Dane Brugler coming up this week. Nate Tice next week. Chris Sims is coming up next week. We got, let's see who's come on. Just a lot of good guys that know a lot about the draft with fun conversation. So if you guys are into the draft, and then we have our draft season podcast with Tony, Pauline, and I, that's once a week. And that's just like all draft talk. And we do that 9 months a year. So not just Giants, that's like all sorts of draft stuff. So if you guys have any interest, Giants.com, Giants mobile app, or Giants YouTube channel, or just search for any of those podcasts, Giants Huddle, Big Blue Kickoff, and Draft Season on your favorite podcast platform. And we'll make sure you know everything about all the players that are going to get picked when the draft takes place in by the time this post, literally 2 weeks away. So pumped to get here.
That was good. I gotta practice how to do that. I'm always just like, yeah.
You have to self-promote, Macri. No one else will do it for you.
I know. Andrew's been telling me this for 5 freaking years. And one of these days I'll actually listen to him. Anyway, John, always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so happy that we did this gimmick that we thought about for a very long time. You're the best. Andrew, thank you for doing everything that you do. And John, read this. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Ron Burgundy. Yes, I am. Thanks for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We'll be back with more fun and games before you know it. Peace out.